Rolling, rolling, rolling.
This is 2 J's in a Pod. I am Mary Ellen Murphy from WGHN Radio.
And I am Sarah Leach with the Ottawa News Network.
I don't really have anything to say because free speech is on the table, and the last thing I want to hear is for somebody to say, when hasn't it been on the table? Get over yourself. I have nothing to say because how do I know someone's not going to call the radio station or, track me down or,
Yeah, are we allowed to say anything?
What am I supposed to say today? This is unbelievable. Jimmy Kimmel, you got to be kidding me. But somebody on Fox News can say that people should be killed if they're homeless and what is going on?
Right before we sat down to tape, I got a news alert that they're suspending military personnel for going on social media if they are making comments that are critical of Charlie Kirk.
Unbelievable. So really, if you want a state media, if that's what you want, then when there's a Democrat in the White House, you better be prepared for that as well.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this because I've seen some things locally too. Business owners who maybe use their social media in a way that talks about, politics, which is always, just PSA, that's probably a bad move because any kind of opinion that you endorse could, potentially reflect on your business. But it is your right to do it. Free speech is a complicated issue, and I think that people try to oversimplify it depending on what the situation is. Like if it's you want to be able to say whatever you want with no consequences. Well, that's not actually what free speech is.
Okay.
That free speech is constitutionally protected in memorialized in the Bill of Rights. But it just means that Congress shall pass no law that infringes on your speech. That's it. It means that laws can't be passed in order to regulate your speech. Everything else, I'm allowed to still react to your speech. I'm still allowed to think what I want and feel what I want. But people, I think that when they have controversial opinions and they know that there's going to be backlash in the things that they say, and I'm not necessarily saying this from a left perspective or a right perspective, because you can see how this applies to a lot of different situations. Yeah. They think that they can just say whatever they want, and when people get upset or somebody cancels somebody else or something like that, they're like, well, wait a minute, you're not allowed to do that. Well, yeah, actually, that is how the marketplace of ideas is supposed to bear out. I think that it's right now what we're seeing with the Charlie Kirk backlash is the government getting involved, which technically I don't think is, I think it's worth exploring legally. I think that it's probably going to prompt a lot of lawsuits, particularly if you're a government employee and you're getting retribution for your free speech. I think that that's going to be really interesting. We're probably going to see some court action on some of those situations. But, I just think that free speech is fundamentally misunderstood on a lot of different levels.
We're doing the show barefoot.
I forgot to put socks on today. And Dirk makes me take my shoes off.
Oh, are we supposed to take our shoes off in your house? No.
That's what I thought the rule was. Okay.
Okay, she thought that was... Okay.
Have you looked at the carpet lately?
Yeah, well, it is kind of 70s, shaggy. So define hate speech. If I sit here and I say, I am terrified for my life because I don't know what my premium is going to be for the Affordable Care Act, and this big, beautiful bill is BS. Is that hate speech?
Well, again, you're going back to court precedent where how is speech defined, right? We saw, I think it was was it Hustler magazine? I think it was Hustler magazine, where there was a famous court case, and one of the Supreme Court justices said, I can't define pornography or obscenity, but I know it when I see it. So speech is mushy, right? We also know about the fire in the crowded theater example, which actually is not super on point. It was actually a comment that was in an opinion, and it's actually been misquoted for a really long time. But it's when you're inciting harm, where it can literally be tied to the words that you put into play. Like if you're saying, I want you to go out and hurt this person, and then somebody goes and hurts that person, and they said, I read that, and then that's why I did it. I suppose that could be some sort of form of hate speech, but it's very, very mushy. We know what hate crimes are. We know that when you're targeting a certain demographic of people that tend to be underserved populations or minority groups, that can be defined as a hate crime. Hate speech is really difficult because communication at its very core has a sender of a message and a receiver of a message. And what the person intends to send is not necessarily what is received. And, working in communications, I see this all the time. I mean, we're all victims to it ourselves. And so it's complicated. And I, as I was driving over here, I kept on thinking, I'm really, really tired of the world trying to take things like this, moments like this, the political landscape is such as it is like this, and trying to oversimplify it into these little neat boxes and this black and white way of looking at things. This is right and this is wrong and this is just and this is unjust. The world is complicated. It's not that simple. And I'm really tired of people, just not really wanting to put in the hard emotional and psychological work to live in the shades of gray that the world actually is. And it's lazy thinking and it's lazy feeling. And we just want everything to be oversimplified and stick our heads in the sand and just have the views that we want and no one argue with us. And we just want to just live our lives until we die. Like that, and that's not life. It's not life. Life is hard. Get in there.
Look, I don't want a target on my back, though, okay? And
I know,
I'm sure that you don't either.
No.
I mean, midweek, I think it was Tuesday, no, it was Monday. I think I even lashed out at Dirk. I was like, what?
How dare you?
No, I did. And I was like, what's the point? What's the effing point of what I'm doing? Because nobody believes the news media, and I'm just like, what is the point?
Well, yeah, that's when they fired Dowd on MSNBC. That to me was sort of like the bellwether, because that was the first domino to fall before Kimmel. We've seen Stephen Colbert canceled, although that did happen before the Charlie Kirk murder. But we're seeing sort of this this backlash of from the right wing, which is running the administration right now, and so some of it is expected. But it kind of makes me look at some of the legacy media options that we have and some of the mistrust that the public the sentiment has been growing. And I think that this sort of confirms some things that we all sort of knew, right? We have these 24-hour news networks and we have these pundits, and they're brought onto these shows specifically to represent, a type of viewpoint or opinion or demographic or whatever. And then when something like this happens and they're doing the job that they're there to do, to actually have the quote unquote minority report opinion that maybe might be counter to whatever the majority sentiment is in the room, and then they're fired for it because it's, that makes me feel uncomfortable. That makes too many of our advertisers feel uncomfortable. But this is so we have pundits that don't pundit. Is that what we're doing?
I'm disgusted.
We have it only when it's convenient for us. Well, then we're not really staying true to the mission that we claim to be serving, and that's fundamentally what the problem is. Is like when things like this happen, it's a polarizing topic. It's complicated. It's nuanced. You can still be horrified by the fact that somebody like literally got gunned down in front of hundreds and now millions of people have seen it online, including children. And we can be horrified by that, but still have a complicated and complex and challenging conversation about Charlie Kirk's legacy. But that makes us feel too uncomfortable. So we're not allowed to talk about it in any productive way. That's what, frankly, pisses me off, because that's not us, being human. It's not allowing us to actually process things the way that we would process any other. If I had a family member or, God forbid, a friend, going through like something like this, and let's say, there was a horrible tragedy, that happened within my family or my sphere of friends, I would be talking about it. I'm allowed to talk about it. We are all allowed to talk about it. We shouldn't be losing our jobs because we're talking about it.
You're right. I just don't know where this is going to go. It's just. So if people have to be held to standards, whether they're broadcasters or people in the federal government, shouldn't local politicians be held to standards too? Shouldn't they not be allowed to go out and post things on social media? Shouldn't they get a little slap on the hand for that?
Yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't you think?
Unfortunately, this is there's a lot of virtue signaling going on in the wake of this locally and statewide and nationally. What I think this is more about, and this is a little bit of a hot take. I'm not sure if this will land, but I just think that when somebody who is a controversial person dies, whether it's this way, natural causes, whatever, you have to, they let a public life. There's a certain body of work that you can look at, this legacy. And when you're a controversial person, it gets complicated because death triggers a reaction in people where they want to elevate the person who has passed. They want to kind of sort of wash away some of the more unseemly aspects of that person's life. We do it in our own personal lives
sure.
too. We all have somebody that we knew or related to that has passed away, and like they were a total jerk to you your whole life, and then all of a sudden, that one time he took me fishing, and he was an all right guy. Like all of a sudden he's a nice guy. And I think that death triggers this like baser thing inside of us because we realize that we are mortal too. We realize that we have an expiration date too, that one day we will be in this moment no longer here and people will be talking about us. I don't even think that we really think about it all that much.
Yeah,
I think it's
right.
just one of that animal reaction, right? And we want someone to maybe wash away some of our sins as well. I do think that it's that weird, that reminder of mortality. And it's at such a massive scale, and he died in such a horrific way that there's this emotional, it's not even just, it's more than grief, it's horror, which is absolutely valid. But couple that with the reaction of losing somebody that you've idolized, when you're in that right wing space and you've been watching this guy, listening to his podcast and watching him at events and all this stuff. And then you're not going to be able to be psychologically prepared to have a complex conversation about who Charlie Kirk really was and what his effect on the American landscape was. I don't know when we're going to be ready to have that conversation. I really wish that people would just sort of pause for a minute and maybe let like a couple of weeks go by before we start having that conversation. That probably would be wiser. But, again, people are allowed to react and feel the way that they want to.
Right. Wow. The last time we talked, we didn't have an Ottawa County administrator. I mean, think about it.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Do you like the way I segue from topic to topic? Well, I don't want to say let's change gears, or you want me to give a time check and tell you what day it is?
We did have a tip, remember?
Oh, we did have a tip from you last week.
Yes.
I think that was off the mics, but
yes.
Or no, okay. So Patrick Waterman, they're drawing up a contract to be the Ottawa County Administrator. Have you talked to any commissioners since this all went down?
I have talked to two.
Okay.
Just to kind of get a read for what they're thinking and feeling. They both are feeling fairly optimistic about things. I think it's hard to say because kind of like what we were just talking about with Charlie Kirk, he definitely is a figure that is idolized in the Ottawa impact circles. So they are going through some stuff right now with that. But then they're also probably pretty miffed about the fact that they wanted anyone but Patrick Waterman because they have conflated this into some sort of conversation about he represents everything that was wrong in the county when they ran in 2022. Spoiler alert, he didn't get hired as the deputy until November of 2022. So I don't know how he could embody all that was COVID and all that was DEI when the DEI department was created years before he was a sparkle in anyone's eye. It just, it doesn't make any sense. I don't think that they want it to make any sense because then it's not as powerful of a talking point. I mean, they're sort of banking on the fact that they're going to say something super impassioned that has like a couple of half-truths in it, and you're just going to, not be lazy and not do your own research, and you're just going to take them for face value. So take that sort of thinking and then move it into the next couple of weeks where we've got this administrator that they absolutely are vehemently against, and this growing sentiment of this backlash of like right wing ideology that's kind of trickling on down from the national level to the local level. And I think that we have a little bit of a tinderbox waiting in Ottawa County. I think that things are going to get a little bit more spicy again. I don't know exactly how that's going to bear out, but I think that this was essentially kind of drawing a line between the two factions of the Republican Party on the board, and I think that we're going to see that bear out.
Wow. All right. When's the next meeting?
It's always the last Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
So I can't remember off the top of my head, but
So-
it's in the 20s somewhere.
So they've
and
got
it's a night meeting this month.
It is, and they've got to present him with a contract, and then they'll be negotiating. So it'll go back and forth, right? Okay.
And it's going to be, inevitably, it's going to be more than what we paid John Gibbs and then John Shea before that. So that was $210,000.
He also got a
annually.
car, though, too.
I think that I'm
he
pretty
or
sure
didn't
that mileage. I know that they got They might have
Okay.
gotten a car. I don't know,
Okay.
but Shea's contract was actually almost identical to Gibbs.
Okay.
So there were not a whole lot of differences in those contracts.
Okay. Good. That's
But
good.
everything always costs more. So
I know it does. I forwarded you a news release from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Director Elizabeth Hertel, the proposed House budget, it cuts $4.95 billion from the department. It looks bad. I mean, it's going to eliminate 1,600 positions, fewer benefits, fewer specialists to help families with food assistance, health benefits, and resources, less staff.
well, it's not just that. I mean, there's going to be cuts to Michigan State Police. There's going to be cuts to Child Protective Services,
Yeah.
which frankly, I mean, has been underfunded forever.
That's what I don't understand.
I mean, we're cutting where we can't even cut.
I don't understand. And I have state rep for this area, Greg Van Workum. He's on the show on Friday at 8:45, everybody. I'm going to have to ask him some very difficult questions.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Right.
$4 million gone to address homelessness, $10 million to help hospitals improve maternal health care and outcomes. But you say you're for the children and you're pro-life. That doesn't make sense to me. $20 million in adult dental coverage. They're slashing state psychiatric hospitals by $6.8 million. What are you doing here?
I know. Well, it's funny because when you said the dental thing, the first thing that I thought about is that do you know that dental problems actually are one of the biggest indicators of deeper health issues?
Yeah, I was married to a dentist. I know.
Yeah,
Look, I know all about it.
I mean, I know that we all sort of like think that this is
Nope.
like, an option or a cosmetic thing, but I mean, if you
Nope.
get like an infected tooth, you could die.
and let me say this.
It could cause a heart attack and you could get sepsis. I mean, you can die.
No, and I'd love to talk to Governor Whitmer about this because her husband was a dentist. He stopped practicing, but a lot of dental issues happen later in life. When
Right.
you are on Medicare, you get 2 cleanings and a filling. That's nothing.
I know.
That is a disgrace. Don't even get me started, please. Don't even get and I'll tell you what. Hats off to the hats off to the dentists that accept Medicaid.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you this much: they go to dental school to help people, not to become rich. And I'm not saying that you have to do that, but they accept Medicaid. They take care of people in need.
Right.
Hats off to them and doctors too.
Well, and one of the things that I also, I mean, which is sort of a trend that's been going on for a long time, but I think this is just going to exacerbate the situation, is that there's going to be additional funding cuts to rural medical facilities,
Yep.
which is ironically where the largest support of the red base is across the country, which it's just, I mean, again, it's not really recognizing your base and sort of assuming that your base doesn't understand what you're doing. I mean, it really is sort of insulting while we're watching this play out because, where I'm positive that some of these legislators and the president got these votes across Michigan especially, they're going to be the ones that are hurt the most.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ag. This is, the health sector. Rural hospitals are closing down. They're consolidating into the cities. There's this paper that I'm helping to manage over in Yale, in
is
St.
in the
Clair
Thumb
County.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep. And their health department just announced that they were consolidating services into Port Huron, and so all of their outreach facilities are going to be closing down because they don't have enough money to keep them operating.
Well, Muskegon County only has one hospital. One hospital in Muskegon County. And that's not even a rural. I mean, come on.
Right. I know.
So imagine if you live in a very rural area and you need, I don't even know where to start with this.
It's more of like a distance thing, right? Because the more remote that you get out there, the farther, that you have to travel in order to get any kind of qualitative medical care. That's sort of the point. And a lot of people will see that as a hardship and not do it and tough it out and probably have expected health outcomes as a result of that. They'll just get sicker.
I'm an independent contractor.
I am too.
Okay, you and I are both on the Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, we don't know how much we're going to have to pay in the new year.
I don't.
How are we supposed to function in budget and live?
It's
keeping me up at night at this point.
Well, the one thing, I mean, I can write it off on my taxes because that is something that you can do. But it's like, well, first you have to pay for it up front, and then you get it written off at the end. But it's like, I mean, how do you do that without an increase in income?
Right. I just don't know, and I have a lot of testing, so I have to have pathology. Things need to be covered, so I have a very high policy. I pay quite a bit of money for it, but I have to.
Right.
I just don't know what I'm going to do, and it's not a fun way to live.
Right.
It's not a fun way to live, and here we are, and I just don't know anymore. Anybody that was celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, I've unfriended them. I've unfollowed them. There's certain pages that I have followed that have said nasty things. I don't even want to go on social media. Quite frankly, I would love it if it went away.
Yeah.
But then how would I do my job? Because, no, honestly, I find so many things on social media. People don't send press releases. They just put it right up on their page. Now, you see a lot of that, too.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, that I told you about last week after we taped is that one of my kids saw the video.
How are you dealing with that?
I am. I think that I'm more bothered by it than they are.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world where they don't really quite understand all of the things that I understand. I grew up in the age of school shootings and mass shootings and this whole phenomenon of this conversation that we're having. Social media, wow, it it was such a great thing for a while, and it has really kind of turned us into some pretty toxic people. Mm-hmm. I really resisted having a Facebook page for years. I didn't join Facebook until like 2009.
Okay.
But I was in my 30s, and I had moved away, and I was getting married, and I wanted my family to be able to see pictures. I only use Twitter and now Blue Sky for work purposes or cat pictures for the most part. Mm-hmm. I'm not just like super, invested in the social media space, but they're growing up in this space. Yeah. And my kids don't even have phones. Like they don't have access to this kind of stuff.
Right.
Another student showed it to them. Yeah. And I can't be there in order to be that buffer and that filter. And the schools are very ill-equipped. They have policies about no phones in classes. This was on a bus where you can't really regulate those kinds of things. Yep. And then, I'm talking to my child about what they felt about it. And the answer that I got was confused. Are you regretting that you watched it? Yeah. Yeah. And I can't take that out of
I know.
Their brain and their memory, and that's there now. And I don't know. I think I'm grieving more for that than anything else because it affects my kiddo personally. I mean, it's
like almost like a loss of innocence.
It is.
Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Like your kid sees something like that, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, you want to protect them from traumatic experiences as much as possible.
Well, you can never go back. I wish I hadn't seen it, and that was just from scrolling, trying to get.
I know.
You can't go back.
I know.
It's like the Zabooger film.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Watching that over and over and over and over. And how many times have we seen that on the TV, right?
Yeah, I remember the way that I saw it, I kind of accidentally stumbled upon it. It was on Twitter, and it was within maybe an hour of the news that he had died. Yeah. And it was on Twitter, and somebody just posted the video like with no warning or anything like that, and it was a comment on a news article. So I was not prepared to see something like that. In response to a Reuters story, I was like, whoa.
I don't know.
Now that's there forever.
So does this mean that Okay.
Well, and it sort of desensitizes us to, when you see something graphic like that, and it's out there in the ether where millions of people have seen it, it desensitizes us to the violence that is happening in this country.
Yeah.
And I worry about that. I really worry about that.
I worry about it too. And, of all times for President Trump to go overseas and, they roll out the red carpet, he gets to ride in a carriage. He's seeing all of that thinking, I want to live like this. And then you have J.D. Vance and Howell.
I want a palace too.
Well, what was up with J.D.? That was nothing more than a soundbite. Governor Whitmer, we'll come if you want us. I mean, that was nothing more than a soundbite. He is just... He tries to put on these big boy pants and be really tough. He's not.
Well, you know how we've talked about, you and I have different approaches to this, right?
No, I know.
Because you kind of get into the reactionary space, which is great.
I always do.
But I'm a little bit more reflective, and I think about it's very difficult for me to take Trump seriously.
I know.
We've talked about this.
I know.
It is even more difficult for me to take J.D. Vance seriously. Leading up to the election, I went to 3 different stumping events that he had in Michigan while I was still doing a lot of freelance. And I mean, I'm just watching the same speech, and it's like this stilted way of these mannerisms that are almost you can tell that somebody has walked him through choreography and stuff. And so I just see this, and I'm just... I write down what he says and I put it in a story, but it's very difficult for me as a voter to be inspired by these kinds of, actions and comments.
And then Tucker Carlson's done a 180. Hello, he's done a 180. He talks about his stance about Israel. He's talking about the Epstein files. He's done a 180.
Somebody I don't take seriously.
Okay, but why has he done a 180? Because do you think he's going to throw his name in? What do you, if there's even an election? I mean, we don't know what could happen. I mean,
okay, so I'm looking at other right-wing personalities, media personalities in particular. Candace Owens is in the headlines too because she's made some very bizarre statements about a lot of different people. Not just Charlie Kirk, but she's kind of going after other people about Charlie Kirk, and so people are publishing their text messages to prove that they did not have bad relationships with him. She's accusing the French president's wife of being a man. It's
I heard
it's a whole situation. Yeah. So there's her, there's Tucker. I just kind of think about this. When you are a media personality, you are an opportunist. You're an opportunist. You're not one thing or another. You're doing whatever panders to the audience so that you can make money. That's the deal. That's why I don't take any of those kinds of people seriously. I mean, anyone who, hosts a talk show or, that's a pundit on a cable news network, I don't take any of those people seriously because I know that they're hired to represent a certain viewpoint so that they and the company that they work for, the media company that they work for, makes money. I don't want to ingest information that way, that is sensationalized and trumped up in a way where you're leveraging it for personal gain. I don't like that kind of stuff, and I try to steer clear of it.
Yeah, he's done a 180, and Bill Maher, I just catch him every now and then. He thinks Trump is trying to start a coup and that even if Democrats win in the midterms, there won't be an election anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah, but so that's the left version of I mean, again,
that's what I'm
Maher's
saying.
An opportunist too. I mean, it's just like anything that you can do to have a wedge issue to invigorate your side of this seesaw.
Yes.
And then we wonder why we all just want to just check out and have I think that's right and I think that's wrong and I'm not talking about it and you can't change my mind. That's why we're becoming this way, is because we're listening to all of these shows and watching these shows and it just that's how we got here. We're letting other people make decisions for us and we don't even realize it because it's too hard to get in there and do the work ourselves because life in and of itself, as an everyday person, is already very challenging. Nobody wants to invest a whole lot of emotional time and space into the political, tone and temperature of the country.
Yeah, you're right.
We let them do it, and then if somebody says something that resonates with us, and if it's slick words, even if it's contradictory to what our value system is, we'll go with it because it's easy. That's America right now.
Yeah. Jeez. Any news on the Campbell plant? I don't know. Well, wait a minute. It's 9:25 on a sunny morning. Any news on the Campbell plant?
No news as of yet.
Okay. See, radio news is you're constantly moving from one story to the next. You don't do a lot of follow up
Right.
in a 4-minute newscast.
Well, I can give you an update on one of the lawsuits that involved Ottawa County.
Ding 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 ding. Update. Ding 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 ding.
This is the FOIA lawsuit, which was probably one of the most kind of like mushy lawsuits because it's very difficult to successfully prosecute on FOIA law because FOIA law, frankly, sucks in Michigan and it doesn't have much teeth to it in terms of consequences when you violate the statute. Anyway, so this is two plaintiffs who filed separate requests in 2023. They were asking for text messages for the Compensation Commission. Remember when they were considering recommending the 60% raise for the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners, and then they did it in just like in every wrong way. They didn't properly notice the meeting. They didn't they tried to reenact the meeting. They didn't have the same members from the meeting to reenact the meeting. And it was a complete dumpster fire. And then the other request was text messages between, I believe specifically Ottawa Impact or affiliate commissioners during the 2-day termination hearing for Adeline Hambley in October of 23. And so the county in both of these cases, in these requests, told the two separate now plaintiffs that they did not have to search personal devices of commissioners. So in this case, their cell phones, because the request specifically said including their personal devices. And the county said, we don't have to. You can't make us. And so then a lawsuit was filed because there is some case law about this. There's an unpublished opinion, but it is widely recognized because I've talked about it in FOIA workshops when I was at the Sentinel, where there's a case that involved the Michigan Department of Corrections, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, where the courts ruled that personal devices of public employees, if you're conducting public business on a personal device, then it is actually subject to FOIA.
Wow.
So there's, all of these, things that are kind of being argued out. And we've had a lot of false stops and starts along the way with this judge who's in Allegan County, who's has a very interesting approach about hearing some of the facts of the case. Anyway, so on Monday, we had a hearing. Both sides had filed for basically a summary judgment where, the county wanted it dismissed and the plaintiffs wanted to just be granted a victory and then we all go home. What is fascinating to me is that I sort of expected it to be dismissed in favor of the county and then it likely would have been appealed by the plaintiffs. That is not what happened. It actually was granted for the plaintiff's petition. The judge found that the county should have taken additional steps in order to satisfy these requests, which, essentially means that the plaintiffs won. However, she said that because there wasn't enough case law that surrounds the FOIA statute, that she didn't feel like it justified granting the plaintiffs attorney fees. Now, I don't know of any lawsuit that somebody has won because the judge is essentially saying you had the right to sue because you are legally right in this, whatever this action is, and then not be granted attorney's fees. And frankly, the statute says that if you are successfully prosecuted under FOIA, then you're automatically granted attorney's fees. So now it's over-ish, but I think that this is going to put the county in a quandary because I don't think that they're just going to leave this. I think it's at about $21,000 in terms of legal expenses over the past year. They're not going to just leave that be. And if the county doesn't offer to pay for it, I think that this still gets appealed so that Attorney Sarah Howard gets her legal fees. And then if you go to the state, the Court of Appeals, now that bill continues to rack up.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Ooh.
Yes. So even though we are sort of over with that one, it's kind of not. It's not completely resolved. Yes.
All right. Could everybody subscribe to our YouTube channel? I promise video is coming. I promise.
Also, winter is coming.
Oh, jeez. That's true. Oh, I get it. I'm all over the place today. Anyway, we have appointments. We got to go. So that is a wrap. Do you want me to do the pa-dum-ba? No? No, he's like, no, don't do it. We don't want you to do it. That's dumb. Bye-bye.